Hello and welcome to Cooks and Cars Race Day Nation edition. I'm Rob D'Amico alongside Michele Rahal. Michele, welcome to the show, man.
It's good to be back. Always good to be back. And we've got a good show planned today.
And no doubt we're going to be talking about IndyCar coming up from the Barber race. And they had a little weather issue, but everything ended up to be a great race. We'll talk about that here in a second. We also have a special guest. Joey Burns is coming up from TobyChristie.com. He'll be joining us from Barber out in Alabama. Where I think he's kissing his sister. Sorry, I had to do that.
It's kind of one of those Alabama things.
Yeah. While you're there, why not, right? Yeah. But we'll be talking to him coming up here in a second. But first, find us online at cooksandcars.com or RaceDay Nation, where you're going to find 7 other podcasts as well on the network. You're going to find stories from Racer, Motorsport, and TobyChristie.com, so you can check out all the stories and the latest news and rumors right there. But Barber, did you get to watch any of the race, Michele?
I did. And, I was pretty pleased at the way it started. And the aggression was really good. For having a green track, from what I understand, it rained, washed the rubber off the track. So it was green, slick. Anybody that started on hard tires was at a deficit. But, the track rubbered in, and there was some action with Romain Grosjean and I can't remember the other driver he was fighting. It was Colton.
Yeah, I will say Colton had a rough day.
He did, but he did get by Grosjean at one point, and that doesn't do him any harm when they're looking at him to maybe go to an Andretti type of Formula One deal.
Yeah,
2024 or
somewhere in there. Yeah, we don't know yet.
Who knows?
That's funny. You mentioned that's one of the stories that kind of fell off the face of the earth. It made a big deal. He presented everything, brought everything to the table, and then nothing.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes, because that's typical Formula One. And what's happening behind the scenes, he's going back and forth with them. They're cutting a deal of some sort, because their biggest problem in Formula One right now is when Andretti joins, it's going to cut into the revenue of the other teams. So that's why they're having him put up $200 million and make him prove that he has a value of $1 billion, close to $1 billion. Then he'll come in, but he's got McLaren. Look at you with this.
$1 billion.
Couldn't read $1 billion. I'm missing the cat.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason they're doing that, you've got McLaren, who is sort of like the B team situation. Zach Brown's already talking about possibly partnering with Andretti, because it's sort of a on game for the B teams. Haas, Ferrari,
yeah,
it goes on. Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, there's a whole bunch there that speaks to the B teams. Now, you got a lot of the other teams that are screeching about it, particularly the manufacturers. But, I don't think that's fair. What do they want? 10 cars running? It makes sense to me. Let's get them in there. If they can compete, they should be there. Simple as that.
We'll see what happens there. Let's get back to Barber. And on the podium there was Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, and the pole setter, Rinus VeeKay. Congratulations to them. And I want to bring this up because you got like Will Power, Scott Dixon, Scott McLaughlin, Romain Grosjean, Graham Rahal, Alexander Rossi, and Colton Herta rounding out the top 10 there. But these are some of the guys, these new guys, the new names in there. And I want to talk to Joey about that, is that you're starting to see these names. It's like you haven't heard Scott Dixon in forever, it seems like. To me, it's like, where'd this guy go all of a sudden? It's not like he doesn't have the talent, but these new guys and the cars that are coming in are, coming here to play.
A couple of these guys are F1 and F2 people. They've really had unbelievable training, because in Europe, if you're in F3, if you're in Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, it's a contact sport. That's what it ends up being. You're going to end up on your head if you go there to get your training, and that's really where you need to be. Right now, we know that Colton Herta has got speed. We don't know how he's going to be able to handle an F1 car, because it's a different car completely. handles different. It's just not the same. The speeds are higher in the corners. The G-force is much higher.
Yeah.
Kevin Magnuson could tell you that for sure.
All right. Well, it's time now to bring on Joey Burns from TobyChristie.com. Joey, welcome to Cooks and Cars Race Day Nation edition. We appreciate you coming on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. The chance.
No doubt. Great race today out in Alabama, and I think these guys really put on a good show. You know, I'm always nervous when you come to a track like this because it wasn't originally built for the cars. It was built for motorcycles. They were hoping to get MotoGP there. Never really worked out. He's got a great museums sitting on the property, but they got IndyCar. They bring some other forms of racing there. Talk about what you saw today at that race.
First off, the facility is exceptional, right? Like Mr. Barber does a wonderful job with the track, and the details, the attention to detail to it are second to none in the series. From the racing product we saw today, it was honestly a little shocking because we're used to seeing a place that is more strategy, less path, and today we got a good blend of both. I mean, you look at it. I mean, Joseph Newgarden and Colton Herta, that this race was starting, we started to see them and Marcus Ericsson as part of the three stoppers. While you look at Renus VK, Pato Award, who went on to win the race, and we're doing a two-stop strategy. That obviously changed around lap 32, and Callum Ilott brought out the caution, and it threw the three-stopper out the window. But in the midst of all that, I mean, Colton Herta and Newgarden were putting on a clinic, an absolute passing clinic. Talking about Colton passing run. I mean, that move was hyper aggressive in general, let alone them being teammates, right? Just really pinning Colton down on the pit wall. It felt like European style of racing is the best way that I could say it. And then you look at what happened later with some of the action that was right in the thick of. I mean, obviously with another teammate with Rossi, there was a mention of a bump there, and then who could forget the little, altercation, if you will, altercation with Rahal. So I'd be very interested
Those damn
to see.
Rahals.
I've had a few of those with the Rahals myself.
I'll be very curious to see what comes from this. There is some truth to the words that were said post-race from Graham, where, there has been penalties for less. Right? Look at the incident that happened earlier in the race with it. It wasn't even as much contact. It's just the end result was different. And so I think if it would have been somebody spinning between Graham and Roman, maybe a penalty there, but because there was nothing that came from that, I'd be very interested with this, because let's not forget the next race, Indianapolis GP, a very heavy one, very much an ownership corner whenever we're going reverse clock there. So I'd be very interested to see if they end up finding each other, because we all know this in racing, whenever you start to see some words exchanged, a rivalry built, you just somehow magnetically find each other on track, whether that's through pit stops, through starting, whatever. So I'll be very curious what goes moving forward, and how, in Graham's words, this gets policed.
This reminds me of 2021 Verstappen, Hamilton, Formula One. It has that feel to it. And everybody in IndyCar right now, they see that Formula One has gotten a big foothold in the United States. So they're going to put on a show. They're going to stick it out there a little farther than they normally do. They're going to fight for it, and they should. I don't see a problem with it, but I do agree with Graham that policing these things is very difficult. If it's not written in stone, if you leave any ambiguity there, a racing driver is going to go for it. It's like Senna said, if there's a gap and you don't go for it, you're no longer a racing driver.
The thing that I find kind of fascinating about this, just kind of listening in before I came on here, is we're really hitting a point where car hasn't been here in a long time in terms of just the quality of racing. We've been building to this the last few years. We've seen it through the road to Indy and the talent that's come through there. Are talking about Formula 2 drivers and not that have come through, and you look at Alex Palou with what he did. We're really at this unique crossroads where there's a blend of styles of racing from different backgrounds, and I think that's so important to get the clashes that we see on track, to build the entertainment product, but also to more than entertainment, because in my opinion, I don't want to see this become tin tops with the stages and all that stuff. But looking at it from a purity standpoint of this is sportsmanlike with the background in. You got the European backgrounds, the road to Indy, the way that they're through their ladder system, not to mention the guys that stall out and don't hit F1 that had to fight for every inch of everything they got. They didn't quite seize it yet. I think of Callum Ilott in that perspective. Lundgaard, those guys have a unique style of racing, and I find it kind of fascinating to see where these things are going to go moving forward with these guys.
Hey, I want to talk about, we're talking to Joey Burns from TobyChristie.com. I want to talk about some of the things that we've heard from Mario Andretti. We know we're big proponents of Drive to Survive with the F1 on Netflix. Mario came out and said, you know what? I don't know if that's the answer. I'd love to see something like that, but not with the made-up drama, if you will. But listen, I kind of like and I dig the drama. I know it's a little fake and corny, but listen, it brings people who aren't normally in the sport into the sport. And I think if you're looking for, to gain audience, to bring in some of that younger group, what needs to be done in the future to bring that style of entertainment to this type of racing, open wheel?
That's an interesting question.
First
off, I actually agree. Yeah, I agree with Mario in a lot of perspectives, and this is one of those, because I think if you put a camera in somebody's face and just have different music, you can really paint a picture of whatever you want these days, right?
Yep.
I look at it, and if you end up trying to grab something somebody else is doing, you are just following. And in racing, that's not supposed to be the theme. You're not supposed to follow. You're supposed to be inventive and take charge and do something unique. I do think something needs to happen in the digital space that's similar to Drive to Survive. I don't necessarily know what that is. Maybe that happens with the new TV deal if that comes. But something, I just don't know. It needs to have some realism, because if I'm being honest, from my perspective, we live in a world now with all the social media and all the stuff going on that it really is cut. Everything is transparent. Fans can see as much as we can see in many respective. So I don't necessarily know that you should go in drama. I think that caters to the velvet rope glass wall that F1 has, a little bit of posh that they want. I mean, for crying out loud, they got for the Miami Grand Prix going on in some fake marina.
That's such a joke. That drives me up a wall.
So you compare that, and it's like, but that's not who IndyCar is. I mean, you talk to Jay Fry, and it's like, we're fast, we're loud, kind of an in-your-face kind of sport. And we're able to do good with the racing product because it's actually good racing. Presentation outside of those things. I mean, Alexander Rossi touched on those earlier in the week, earlier this weekend, actually, just talking about something similar of, we have everything that we need within the confine track. It's just the presentation of how to grab people off of it. That's paraphrasing. That's not the exact words he said. I would echo those. I don't know what that is. I don't think we should go with the Defy Everything campaign 2 years in a row for starters. If it didn't grab I don't see how it's going to grab the second time. But, beyond that, things got to be pushed a little bit further in that digital space for sure. A little bit more modern, a little bit more into the current landscape is, and not maybe what the landscape was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
It's all changed. I mean, it has to be. You literally have to rebrand. And every couple of years in this digital space, you've got to continue to rebrand because you lose audience. I mean, we've got an audience out there that has a very short attention span. They want to consume things in bites. They have multiple ways to consume it. And so IndyCar has got to be able to pull out personalities and be able to show the excitement of the race itself and the cars and the crew in the whole 9 yards. But they've tried it, and they've tried some things in the past. I'm hoping Penske, is able to put something together that'll give them a presence of branding, because you got to tell a story. You really do. That's the whole point of the Netflix deal. It told a story, and we bought it. All the kids here, the young people, they bought it. The excitement of it. I agree with you. I don't want to see it replicated in IndyCar, but they got to do something, and they've got to become stronger in the digital space, because that's where we all live. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Just one thing to add to that is, I know we're not there yet, and I don't want to go too far off topic, but when I look at like what we're doing with Iowa, with how involved and how much put into doubleheader weekend at Iowa, to turn it into a festival, not just, hey, here's a race, here's some cars going in circles,
Right.
you know, trying to grab fans that way. Building the snake pit for the Indy 100, and you're taking it somewhere else, and you're trying to turn things into, well, what you can do at road and street courses. You're trying to find ways to do what you do at Long Beach on ovals. I think that's so important, because you have to have an atmosphere that if you're going to have somebody try to part with their money for 3 days, or even for a single day, what can you do to give them the most bang for their buck, to make it to where, hey, you know, at 3 o'clock noon the race starts, but from 7 a.m. until 1, we're going to go play around with the Ferris wheel and hear music and go do this and go do that, and then walk gates to go see the race. I think we're hitting the point where we're starting to hit on those notes. It's amazing it took this long, but I think that's one step in the right direction. So I do think that we could see things in the digital space kind of follow suit in a positive way like that, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I agree with you. It's one of those. It's one of those situations where, if they are going to put on a show, it's got to be a show worthy of the big show. They've got to, they've got to be able to have multiple things to do, as you said. We've seen that in the past, a festival atmosphere, particularly when they come to St. Pete, a street race like that, or to Long Beach. But we haven't seen as much of it at other tracks. Iowa being quite popular. I don't know, rattlesnake dancing. What the hell? I mean, anything is going to help. It's an exciting track to see the Indy cars run on. And it's like running around in a bowl, but the drivers seem to enjoy it. I'm stunned they don't pass out, but they still seem to enjoy it. They certainly enjoy the fans. The fans are getting a kick out of it, but they need to expand that out to the other tracks in the United States and have a good show, as you had said.
Hey, Joe, I got a quick question for you. We've brought this up on the show many times about ovals in IndyCar, and do they need to be there? Sure, the Indy 500 is a staple; it needs to be there. But Texas, we've all seen the crowds dissipate and kind of fall apart there. They need to. I'm not sure what it is they need to do there, but if they're going to do something, what might that be? And I know, listen, I even brought this up as an example with Hy-Vee coming in. With the sponsorship and doing that whole doubleheader and making it a huge deal. I'm just not a huge fan of Iowa. And personally, I just feel like that is putting those motorcycles in a cage where they go round and round. That's what it feels like to me with those types of cars.
Hell, that's what it looks like, Rob.
Yeah.
You're going to fire me up talking about this. I wrote a column about
this. That's right.
I wrote a column about this particular problem on Tom just after the Texas weekend, because I saw the crowds. It's my home track. I'm like 15 minutes from there. And I grew up going to races there whenever we used to pack out the place, right? So I've seen the slow decline, and it's been painful. I think first and foremost, we need ovals on the schedule. We need ovals of all different kinds. It doesn't matter what in particular it is, short oval, big oval. I think that this is a complete championship, and it needs to be perceived as such. That's number one. So I would like to see an addition of 2 more ovals, whether that's Kentucky, Homestead, if they can find a way to rectify things with Auto Club or Michigan. We need to be in that space for sure. And I think beyond that, in some ways, I'm wondering if the business model needs to change. And how I mean that is, typically you've got tracks that pay sanctioning fees, and this, and it's one of those of they pay the sanctioning fee, their communication staff helps run it. But you look at all this, and you're starting to look at what the investment is with Iowa. And let's use Iowa as the example here. Iowa is NASCAR owned. There's no secret about wanting to buy it. Hadn't bought it yet. Everybody kind of knows this stuff behind the scenes, but you start to look at this, and it's like, well, who's running that? Penske Entertainment's running that weekend. The Entertainment's the one that's putting all that stuff together. When you look at a place like Texas, it's a different entity, right? It's Speedway Motors that's running that. So they're responsible for the things. sanctioning fees be damned, because that's what it comes down to, is the fact that, like, well, we don't do this or this or this, and you're responsible for this. People just got to cut the egos. We're in a racing. I understand you've got to open the checkbook to pull it off, but I think there needs to be a little bit more give and take of understanding where the potential of this series is, where it is realistically right, and what the actual end game is, because the end game is what's going to bring fruits to everybody. But we just continue to close ourselves in some respects. And I think that for many standards, with Texas, for instance, I know that they got calls 3 weeks ahead of time before the race saying, we want to do an event, in Fort Worth with some trailers, and we need to get Sundance Square, lock it down. It's like, you're doing that 3 weeks in advance. That's not realistic. You need to be planning 8 months out. So a lot of things seem last minute, and they're not coming with a whole lot of foresight in that regard. So I think those things can be adjusted. I think also trying to mix together to try to look at what we can do as if Texas is paying a sanctioning fee that's this, fine. So what can IndyCar bring to the table to help make it a festival atmosphere? What partners can we get involved? NTT Data is based in Dallas, literally like 20 minutes track. The main sponsor of this, they're telling me that we can't do anything for that main market, which is the fourth largest sports market in the States. And that's where we get stuck at. That doesn't me. It feels like, and for lacking else to say, it feels like laziness. I don't know how. I understand Texas, the crowds haven't been great, but I think that comes with also the investment that you put in it. You're going to get out what you put in just about everything you do. And they're hitting a whole lot of investment from anybody's perspective, from our side on Texas with Barber Motorsports, but equally IndyCar, because IndyCar wants to see the crowd. So I think that everybody wants to put in that perspective and not take ownership of the responsibility that they are both at fault for the situation that they have right now there. I'll leave that there. There's more details that I could go into, but that's the best abbreviated I could probably give. But that's one example of need more ovals, though, is the investment from the series and from the track promoters themselves.
You're not alone. Penske agrees with you, so we'll see what happens.
And I will say this: I feel like we talk about the championship, and you want to see a championship driver who is great on all tracks, whether it's a road course, a street course, an oval, things like that. That's great. Even in NASCAR, when they said they were bringing the Cup cars and putting them on dirt, and even at Bristol, I was like, come on, who in their real mind is driving a Mustang around a dirt track? You know what I mean? It just didn't feel right to me. But now that they're doing it, I actually embrace it a little bit, because now I feel like it's okay. Now it's bringing another element into this championship. Now I understand that this driver has to compete on a road course, an oval, and different types of oval. It could be a short track. It could be, the 1.5 miles. It could be the new Atlanta. But we're seeing this now. We're seeing this thing where, okay, now this is a true champion of this series. And when we brought this up, we actually had a guy comment on one of our YouTube channels saying, listen, if they didn't do the ovals that they are doing right now, they might as well just be the, feeder series to F1 or something like that. This makes them different and independent. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for a second, I thought you were going to lead me where we were about to get USAC involved and run at Terre Haute or something like that. Terre Haute. So I do think, if I understand your question or where you're to go with this, I do think that we need to kind of drift a little bit away from what the current identity is somewhat. Just because how long have we heard kind of the same thing and the same narrative for so many years? Insanity, right? And right now,
Michele, Rahal.
We've talked.
Yeah. You're looking at them.
We talked about these things pretty consistently at length for a number of years, right? The third OEM and the oval situation and things like that. And now we're at the point as a series where we're running 2 races on this road course. Free race, cool, but where's the shock value, and how do you actually make it? How do you not devalue something else, right? Like you get give us the NASCAR Brickyard weekend with Indy GP right there with them. But how do you not devalue the Indy GP before the Indy 500 in that respect? So, yeah, again, if I understand your question, I do think we have to kind of drift a little bit away from where we are to find new things similar to what NASCAR did with kind of racing on dirt and things like that. It's just key. I think that comes down to figuring out the TV markets. I mean, don't forget 2020, we were supposed to race at Richmond. And then COVID happened, and that has still been a top TV market for IndyCar. It's been in the top 5 ever since. And for whatever, that conversation has never reignited to go back. Don't know why, don't know how. That's just kind of where things have stood so far.
Well, we're talking to Joey Barnes with TobyChristie.com. Appreciate you coming on with us. So if race fans got a question, want to reach out to you directly, what is the best way to get in touch with you on social media and through the website and all that? How do they find you online?
Where can I have my futures, you mean?
Yeah.
At Joey Barnes
Exactly.
85. On Twitter is the best way to kind of interact and get a hold of me. I'm usually pretty quick on the draw with replying to folks and talking, and I love the conversation too. I think that space, as much as it can be toxic in this day and age, it's also fun because you can still, at least from where I am, have opinions and disagree, but still be able to kind of see what the other side is. And I think that's something that's so crucial in motorsport as we try to move forward, and I try to incorporate with what I do. So,
well, we also know you live pretty close to Texas Motor Speedway, so that's a start.
Yeah, that's where the stalking begins, I guess, right? It's like
All right,
there's
man,
like
hey.
what 4 million people here. Good luck finding me.
Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. And thanks again for coming on. And TobyChristie.com is where most of your stories go. Or do you have them on other places too, or how does that work?
Yep. Right now, it's just Toby Christie's site. So TobyChristie.com is where they can find all my main stuff. I'm the founder of Motorsports Tribune as well, and got a good group of writers handling some stuff there. But that's strictly an ownership job. So helping the next generation of journalists come through in this industry.
That's
Good
nice,
for you.
man. Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, I know Toby gets on iRacing. Are you an iRacing guy or no?
No, I'm not an iRacing guy. I'd rather go karting
like,
or something.
no.
I'd rather get behind the real thing. That'd be more fun.
I hear you.
So,
all right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Joey Barnes, man, great guy there. Great conversation. And, I thought
Very
that,
intelligent guy. Very intelligent conversation. I mean, his answers were right. I'm not an oval fan, as you well know. I can't stand the ovals, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I mean, the business model's got to work. If it doesn't work, you got to change it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I'm all for the getting out there and being at different tracks and being at an oval. My only thing with Iowa, and I've said this over and over again, and you agree, is that it's bizarre. It's like watching those motorcycles in that little ball round and round. And I feel bad because
Like a roulette wheel.
What Hy-Vee's done and the investment they put into that's exactly what the sport needs. I just wish it wasn't at that track. That's all.
Yeah, they may do it with something else because I know Penske's not going to just sit there. The guy doesn't have what he has for no reason.
Yeah.
And he obviously has some vision for where he's going to take IndyCar. We just have to wait and see what that vision is. You've got a lot of heavy-duty egos and personalities involved, all the way from somebody named Rahal down all the way to Zach Brown to Penske. I mean, it just keeps rolling.
Let's start off with yours.
Yeah, no.
You want to lay it on a couch? This is counseling time.
No. I've caused enough trouble and have been in enough trouble.
All right. Hey, Michele, where can they find you before we head out?
Well, they can find me at Michele Rahal. That's MiChele and the number 9 on Instagram. And you can find me at Michele Rahal, MiChele Rahal on Facebook. Easy.
All right. You can find me on Instagram at Rob D'Amico, pretty much anywhere on social media at Rob D'Amico, ROBDAMICO, or you can go to our website, which is cooksandcars.com or racedaynation.com, where you're going to find all the racing stuff. With Cooks and Cars, you're going to find some stuff that I do with Big Green Egg there and talking about some exotic stuff. And by the way, I did go test drive a Roma this weekend, which was really nice. Yeah, it was really nice. Great car. It is made to be a daily driver in that,
that was your Tinder date.
Yeah. So what do you want to do? Well, I got an idea.
Right.
But I will say, great stuff. The Ferrari Club of America was out there, the Atlanta chapter, and they were doing an event, and I got to go out and hang out and do some stuff. And they were like, "Hey, man, here it is. If you want to take it out." I was like, "Yeah." I actually had the opportunity to do the F8 when it first came out, and that was I tell you, that was one of my best moments in a Ferrari. That's
a fast car.
Oh my gosh, it was spectacular. But I will say, the Roma, the only thing to me, great road car, great ride, for a daily driver. The problem is those electronics. Everything is you got a screen to change the seat.
I've heard the interior is not what people really like.
Yeah.
That it is so over the top in terms of electronics that they don't care for it.
Yeah.
That's Mercedes-Benz stuff. You want a sports car, even if it's a daily driver, you still want, a decent sports car to drive.
Yeah. Well, I will say this: if it is the daily driver and it's the future of what it does, the electronics is part of the game. For me, I felt a little like, I got to this button and push this, and where's this at? I don't know where this is. Stuff like that. Yeah. But other than that, a great car, great riding, very comfortable. 4 seats. I can fit me and. Well, I have no friends, so
there's a damn good reason for it.
All right, Michele, thank you so much for joining us. You can catch us online at RaceDay Nation, YouTube, Facebook, all that great stuff. Please follow along and leave a comment. If you got a question, please do. We get them all the time, and we bring them up here on the show. So thanks again to Michele Rahal. I'm Rob D'Amico. This is Cooks and Cars RaceDay Nation edition. We'll see you next time.